Suaad Abdulle is a distinguished inclusive strategist and advocate with extensive experience across the UK, Somalia, and Kenya. She is the founder of CIP Kenya and CSEND Somalia and co-founder of IHENA UK, leading initiatives that empower women, support families, raising children with special needs, and advance inclusive communities. Saudi is also the host of forthcoming podcast Inclusive Talk Africa, spotlighting stories of resilience and social impact across the continent. Her work spans human rights, disability advocacy, and child welfare, and she is widely recognized for her visionary leadership, policy influence, and unwavering commitment to building bridges for marginalized communities with an experience of 25 years.
Every person
has a story. Some loud, others
are buried in silence.
And here we bring them to light.
Some conversations change how we think. Others change how we live. This is a space for both. Welcome to In the Quiet podcast, where honesty isn't filtered, but silent cups are filled. Hey there. Welcome back to In the Quiet podcast, where silent cups are filled. I'm your host, Kenzuri, and if you're new here, this podcast we talk about everything mental health, everything psychology. And if you haven't joined the community, please do by subscribing down below. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and on our social media platforms. We're back yet again with a very interesting topic that I've been so passionate about and so wanting that our community gets to understand what it is and its importance. And I'm not alone. I'm not alone in the studio. So before I introduce the topic, allow me to welcome my guest.
Thank you so much for welcoming me in the quiet. I know you as Sandra. Do I call you
Kenzuri?
Kenzuri.
Yeah, or Sandra. You can
Sandra.
Call me
I think
Sandra.
that's easier for me.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much for inviting me to the podcast in the quiet. It's a really, the name itself kind of brought me to kind of quietness.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really looking forward to the conversation and I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you so much for accepting my invitation. Today's topic is about autism and caregiver support. I particularly wanted to talk about this topic because there is a rise.
Okay.
It has the issue has always been there.
Yes.
But the rise is also there. But the rise of awareness or even solution or intervention is not increasing.
Yeah.
The issue is there, but the solutions or approach or intervention is like it's non-existent whatsoever. And the people doing it are not being offered support in terms of finance, in terms of technical support, training of personnel. I was like, what is our take? What is our view as a community, and what is it that we are doing? And that's how I saw your good work and what you've been doing.
Thank you.
And I'm like, this is someone that I would love to have to talk about these things because she is well informed. She's doing the work. She knows the challenges that are in the field. So she's the right person to have the conversation with.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I kind of agree that in terms of like superficially, autism has increased, and a lot of people will put it down to different factors. But for me, I put it down to knowledge because I think people are being educated. Social media has now advanced, and there's a lot of people who understand the idea of autism and what does it stand for. So now if you ask parents, a lot of parents come to me and they say to me, oh, I think my child is autistic. And I'm like, how do you know? You're not the expert. And they will say to you, oh, because I've seen the signs. So that shows you there's more knowledge, more education to the public. So when now people are happy to discuss when they notice a difference.
Before I ask you about the dyslexia, I was going to ask you, as mothers coming to you and assessing their own children, how do you be able to differentiate them just overthinking and feeling that kids are and you ensuring that these kids are taken to assessment.
Yeah.
Because currently I've been seeing a trend where parents think,
Assessing their children.
yeah,
Yes. I think that's a really good question. Knowing the science and diagnosing someone is completely different. So when parents reach out to me and they say, a lot of the time, parents, when the child is kind of speaking late, about 2.5, 3 years old, that's when they start concerns. Some parents actually notice the concerns early on if it's their multiple children. So if it's not the first child generally identification is way, way late because parents don't know what they're looking for. So when parents come to me and say to me, oh, okay, I've noticed, these signs, what do you think? Then we have a kind of a screener where we give parents the questions. They actually go into those questions. And then when we identify, then that's when we refer it to a pediatrician or a psychiatrist because it's a medical condition. So not everybody can diagnose.
Yes.
Everybody can identify.
Yes.
So there's a difference between identification and diagnosis.
Yes.
So parents do identify symptoms, but we refer them to the medical team to get the full diagnosis. So that's what we do.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And we will talk into it later on what are the identifying things that a parent should be looking for.
Okay, so when it comes to autism, and this is the topic that we're talking about, there's a number of identifiers that we look at. However, to be able to be diagnosed, there's 3 identifiers that are really key. If those 3 are not present, you cannot call somebody autistic or you cannot diagnose them. And that is in the medical document. It's called the DSM-5.
DSM-5.
Yes. So that document actually kind of goes into deep. As I said, medical doctors is the only people who can do the diagnosis officially.
Yes.
So the 3 are, first is communication.
Yes.
When we talk about communication, a lot of people think about child not talking. Not necessarily.
Yes.
There are individuals who can fluently have, language, have a speech, but still have a barrier to communication. So we kind of lump communication as one and kind of decide where they are in the communication kind of strand, depending the level of autism that the child or individual have, which again can be determined, although we don't kind of tell people now this is the levels because we realized all individuals with autism have the same difficulties regardless of the level they have.
Yes.
The second one is social interaction.
Yes.
Individuals with autism have difficulties in kind of associating with other people. It's not necessarily that they don't like it, they just don't have interest in social interaction. And the final one that must be present in order to be diagnosed is either repetitive behavior or restrictive behavior. Again, a lot of people will see different level of restrictiveness, different level of repetitiveness, some mild, some severe. So we look at those as well. If those 3 are not present, we normally call it you have autism traits rather than autism diagnosis.
I love that. Before we go any further, what is autism? Someone who's listening is like, okay, what are they talking about? What is autism?
Autism is a spectrum. It is how someone views the world. It's a difference. That a lot of people kind of have their different ways of looking at it depending where you are on the spectrum.
Yes.
So it is really hard to put them in a box, but basically they have different views or different ways of looking at the world than a typical developing brain. So it's a neurological condition, meaning it is a neurodiverse thinking or neurodiverse way of looking at it. And a lot of the time, it is really hard to kind of describe it because that's how they are. And individuals who live with autism, when they talk about themselves, they see themselves as typical. It is us who view them different. Does that make sense?
You ate that. Yes.
So that's why it's really, really hard to kind of describe it, but it's a neurological condition that affects how one sees the world.
Yeah.
Or views the world.
Views the world.
Yeah.
Their own lens is different from what we would consider a developed
Definitely.
thing. Yeah.
But to them, they're typical.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. What led you to found the Center for Inclusion?
Okay, this is a kind of a long-winded answer, but to kind of, in short, is there was a need. So Center for Inclusive Practice, it is a space to prepare children for the world of out there that view them as different.
Yes.
And the gap that I've noticed, because obviously I came from the UK, that's where I grew up, that's where I studied all my adult life. I spent in London. So when I came here in early 2020 actually, 2018 to be precise, that's when I came back officially to work in East Africa. I have noticed that there was no breach between specialist provision and mainstream education. And I've also noticed that therapy and education there was no correlation. There was no link.
Yes.
Therapy was dealt by health professionals. Education was dealt by education team.
Yes.
And I felt that, in order for a child to be successful in education, therapy and education has to have a merge somehow.
Yes.
And because I had the experience of working in the UK as a teacher, as a specialist individual working with those children who are in a mainstream setting but had different needs, it was easier to kind of incorporate education and therapy in my center. And our vision is to prepare children for an inclusive education that enables them and prepare them for the world out there.
Yeah. I particularly love your work so much. And as you said, there needs to be, you're bridging the gap between this mainstream education and therapy and psychology that these individuals need for them to be fully equipped. And there is a big gap because when it comes to the policies that are made for education and how these individuals or children with autism, I feel like they're last thought about. And that makes me raise the question of is it because of the myths that we have as a people that means that once we reach into positions we're supposed to be making laws governing us, or because we don't have people around us with these situations, maybe we tend to forego or not to care about it? You can take us through the myths and why is it that our policies or whatever the system is is not inclusive enough?
Okay. First and foremost, inclusion is a new phenomenon. It's only been around in the last 30, 40 years. It's more prominent in the West than in Africa, particularly in East Africa. But I must stress that when it comes to policies and systems, it is in place. And when you look at the policies, particularly in we know, in this podcast is recorded in Nairobi, that's where I practice. When you look at the policies that are being developed, incredible.
Yes.
It is, kind of borrowed and beautifully written. However, what is missing is the contextualization in the current climate of education here and East Africa. So what is missing is, as you kind of highlighted, is implementation on the grassroots level and kind of like practicing those policies and enforcing them. When you look at that, there might be two challenges. One is the enforcement of those policies. In order to do that, you need financial representation or financial budgeting.
Yes.
A lot of the time, budgeters, when they're budgeting, that is the kind of the last budget that they kind of think about, because those who are developing the policy sees it as the minority, those of us who are minority. So the budget is not enough to kind of get it to a grassroots level and create an accountability. And I think that's what I'm noticing a lot. I'm still kind of looking into the whys. It will take some time for me to be able to put some numbers into it. But what we are seeing at the moment, inclusive education, it is not widely practiced because of lack of education to the teachers or the leaders in education. As I said, because of the budgets, and those who were supposed to do it are not able to kind of do it, mainly because there's no accountability or mainly because there is not budget available to it.
Yeah.
However, I feel like society is now more informed and now demanding that. And I'm hoping in the next 2-3 decades that would become the norm. Inclusive education will become the norm, but it's not an easy task. Even in the UK, even in the West, it's still a struggle.
Yeah.
So I feel like, and the word inclusion at the moment is kind of lightly used.
Yeah.
It is not kind of, it has no substance.
I agree.
So I think when we realize it, how important it is, that is when we put our efforts into it. But I think people, if they demand from their politicians, from the people who are leading education, it will get done. So my advice to the communities is that seek what is right for you. Because it is that the system, the policies is there. It's just implementation that we are not seeing it yet.
And that is us speaking from a perspective of cities. We're speaking from a perspective of education.
Yes.
It us being in a place where we are educated about these things. We are surrounded by people who are educated, who can even listen to you and be like, oh, this makes sense. We're not talking about the exterior, the interior, deep villages of Africa, whereby these people still think there are some forces that are causing their women to give birth, because now it's a women problem. Yeah, and causing the women to give birth to certain children.
Yeah,
there are people who, in their communities, they have to hide these people or even kill them
because of the stigmatization. Yes.
I want you to take us through the myths. What is the myth surrounding autism?
I think the myth mainly is because people, when they see difference, and this is what we're talking about, the autism on the kind of the low functioning part, when the child is severely impacted by their condition. There are individuals, because every autistic individual are unique. Every autistic individuals present their autism differently.
Yes.
So those who are high functioning, who are coming up with the most incredible inventions are not classed as autistic.
Yeah.
However, what we're talking about in this conversation is those who have severe end of the spectrum, which means that when a child presents such condition, it is about, some communities call it as a curse.
Yes.
Or maybe the parents have done something to that child or to the community that they live in. It could be that some people could call it as a juju or
Yes,
something
yes,
that
it's
has been
juju.
done to this family.
Yeah.
However, in the world of science, we know that it's not caused by individuals. There are some who would put out there, and it's a bit more connotation, is that it's environment. I'm in the believer of that this can be environment, genetics, and behavioral.
Yeah.
The world of research is still out there to determine the cause of autism.
Yeah.
Therefore, one can speculate and say it causes this, it causes that, and it became a huge business.
Yes.
So for me, stigma is present in Africa, and parents go to some extent to hide their children. In the UK, I think there was a research done, 87% of marriages break because of a child with additional needs in that family. So it is a huge kind of, it is not just, I don't want to see people to see that, it's just African thing. It's not. It's a global thing.
It's a global thing.
This stigmatization is a global thing. But I feel like in Africa, what we haven't caught up with is the education.
Yeah.
That it's not the parents' fault. It is not preventable. Some might say it is, but in my view, it's not presentable. Therefore, when the child presents such condition, it is important to educate your community as a parent and put yourself out there. It is hard, especially at the early stage. And we're going to talk about stigma brings a lot of grief.
I think you can go into it because you've talked about how family, the breakup,
Yes.
it's due to burnout, the grief, and all these things. I think you can just go through it.
So the importance of stigmatization enables individuals to hide their children, to feel guilty that they caused this condition to their child. It breaks marriages. So initial stage when you kind of understand your child is different, the initial thought is, no. There's nothing wrong with my child. I think other people are seeing what you're not seeing.
You're in denial.
You're in denial. Yeah. So the first stage of grief is denial.
Yes.
And then when you realize, okay, I see what people are seeing right now, then you go into the fixing mode. And this is the stage where people are taken advantage of because they want to fix their child. This is where they go into all those experimental interventions, such as stem cell, finding medications. And I am not a medical doctor. I'm just a teacher, an educator. I'm not against finding solutions to support our children in order to function in the world that they live in. But I do not like experimental interventions because, you become the guinea pig and you pay thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to do that. And a lot of people sometimes might say, I've noticed a change. A lot of it might be a placebo effect.
Sure. That's what I was going to say.
Because, a lot of parents came to me who had done those experimental interventions, and they will report change initially because that's what they wanted to see, and they will see it. But down the line, they can see
there wasn't really much of a change.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then when they realize, oh my God, the fixing period can be years, can be months, but typically it's years because it takes a long time for someone to come to terms with their child and the condition that they live in. And we're talking about the end spectrum, the severe side of the condition. And then finally, when they realize that they have done everything in their power and their child somewhat still autistic, because that is the traits that they possess. That is who they are. You cannot change someone's way of viewing the world.
Yeah.
You can enhance how they experience. And that is the bit that a lot of people are not understanding. That, yes, we want to make the experience in the world that they live in happier, supportive,
safer,
and safe for them to feel belonging. But we're not here to change the individual. And that's what the fixing period's looking for. That is when the acceptance comes in, and that's the sweet spot. The minute you accept your child for who they are, that is when you see the most change in the way they carry themselves in the world that they live in.
Yeah.
Because they feel belonged, they feel loved, and they feel accepted for who they are, not who they want to be for the people that brought them to this world.
Yeah, I love that, because it's not you. They're now living for who they are as a person, and it all just took you seeing them for who they are instead of you seeing them of a version of a child that you think how a child should be, because of how maybe you see your neighbor's children are, or even your firstborn.
No, every parent, when they conceive a child, the first thing that comes to your mind is how this boy or this girl gonna be.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, our children live our dreams. We want to live our dreams through our children.
Yes. Yeah.
So this vision of the child in our womb that we have as a parent, somewhat, if they become different, it is hard to take.
It is a disappointment of whatever you planned.
Yes. And depression sets in.
Yes.
You know, the denial, the fixing. And then when they accept their child, that is when they see a lot of the changes. And I say to parents, and I'm very frank in my approach, I don't sugarcoat.
Yeah.
When parents come in this state of denial, so when parents come to me with their child, and I love when parents come to me with their child in the early stages, because at least at that moment, we know that the brain develops very heavily from the minute the child is conceived all the way to age 7.
Yeah.
That is the sweet spot that a child is a lot of interventions to be put in, particularly in everyday activities. That's when you need to do speech and language therapy. That's when you need to do occupational therapy. That's a lot of the time where we kind of maneuver around behaviors and kind of give the child the opportunity to grow within who they are. So when parents come to me, I kind of assess which stage they're in, and if they're still in the denial stage, because the minute they go through the denial, when they realize, oh my God, you know, I need to do something about this, this is somewhat true, then they go into depression. That's when they go through the fixing period.
Yeah.
And even when they come out of the fixing period, again, they dip into depression because they feel failure.
Yeah.
They feel like everything that they've tried has not worked
They feel
the way
defeated.
they wanted. It might have worked to some extent, but they haven't seen the version of the child that they were looking for. Again, they will go into depression kind of episode. A lot of parents might not stay long because they can't. They have to be there for the child or the children that they have. And then when they go through the acceptance period, that is when they're coming out of all those guilt, all those feeling of the community pain. And because people are very insensitive to say that, oh, the family who have the sick child. The family are named through their child. And it hurts. Parents come to me and confide to me and say to me, you know, It hurts. It hurts when we go out into the restaurant and our child is having their moment and people looking at us and like, you should be disciplining this child. They might not say it out loud,
But they're giving you a
but that
look.
they're giving you the look, or
Yeah.
they kind of treating you like, you know, we need a peace in here, guys.
You brought chaos.
Exactly. And I kind of train parents to be advocates for themselves and for their children and to educate the community, because a lot of the negatives are coming out of ignorance,
True.
not arrogancy.
Yeah.
And this is where I'm more kind of gentle with the community, because we need to educate them and we need to. So this kind of conversation allows it. So if you see a child who's behaving differently, who is acting differently, don't assume it's a bad parenting. It is not.
Yes.
It might be that child might have a difference. They might be a special kid. And you need to be able to kind of, you know,
Give grace.
sympathize with those parents. We don't like empathy. Empathy is just like, I feel sorry for you. No, don't. This is a special child that given to them by God. And God wouldn't provide that family to this child if he knew they wouldn't be able to care for them or accept them.
Yeah.
But it's a journey that they have
It's a
to go
journey
through.
that they have to go through.
Yeah.
And speaking of that parent fatigue, guilt and all that, what is the care or support that they need as parents who have a child struggling with autism, who has these needs, different needs from what we call it a normal or what we consider so common to us? What is the support that they need from the community? What is the support that they need from spouses? What is the support that they need from professionals?
I think I will take it into two categories. The first category is that as a person, as a parent, I think you need to be really, really aware of your own needs and to be able to kind of recognize that and ask for help when you need one.
Asking for help.
You're not a superpower. It is okay to feel fatigued. It's okay to feel tired. It's okay to feel defeated, because what you are dealing or the situation that you have in your hand, it is something that is new to you and you're learning to live with it. So be aware of your feelings, especially if the child is not sleeping at nighttime, if they're not eating well, if they're not able to regulate their emotions. It takes a toll on the parent.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, it takes a toll on the mothers.
Most of the time.
Because, fathers feel helpless. It's not that they don't want to support. It's not that they don't want to be there for their child. It is just they don't know how to. But naturally, mothers we have that natural instinct just to be there for our children. So ask for help. Ask your spouse. And you need to be explicit in how you want to be supported.
I love that. You can talk more into that.
Because a lot of people feel like, oh, you can see me, I'm struggling. Why can you help me?
They assume you know what they need.
Exactly. So I want mothers or parents in general to know what they want to be helped with. So if you are sleep deprived, ask a parent, your sibling, your parents, your neighbors, people you feel close to be once a week to mind the child so you can sleep a whole night.
Yeah.
Or, in the daytime, have a couple of hours of nap so somebody can look after the child.
Yeah.
You need to be specific. Do you want them to help you with the house chores? Do you want them to help you to get the shopping for you? Be specific in how you want it to be supported.
Yeah.
Because we're not mind readers.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
That's one.
Yeah.
The second one is the other people. You can see your sibling, your sister, your brother, your family is struggling. If they have ego and pride and they don't feel like asking, go and offer.
Yeah.
Support. Yeah. Say, what can I do for you?
Be kind.
Be explicit in what you need to kind of do it. and kind of help them in that sense. And I really like the professionals to be more kind to the parent. A lot of professionals can be also judgmental at times because you might be able to say to the individual, do this, this, but it's easier said than done. So when they go home and they struggle with the interventions that you put out them for them, know that it's okay. Tell them it is okay to kind of struggle with it. Eventually, they'll find their way. There is no one intervention that fits for all. We might have all the strategies and all the interventions. It is about how those families use those interventions to fit their own lives.
Because every family is unique. Every child is unique.
Yes.
And I feel like that's why we need like a whole approach that is looking on all sectors, all areas that are particularly set for this specific family.
One of the things that we do in our center is that every child that comes through us, we create a bespoke interventions for them and their families. We get to know the child, we look at their strength. So every child's IEP is different. So every family expects different because that's how it should be.
Yes.
Education should be bespoke. I don't agree with education that is generic because it doesn't work like that.
I agree with you 100%. Because again, as you're saying, it's us assuming that the family, let's say, has only one child. They could have like 4 children.
Yes.
And they're all different.
Yeah.
All these 4 children, though they are autistic or they've been diagnosed, their approaches are going to be different for each one.
And to be honest with you, we don't even put diagnosis into the kind of equation. We just look at the needs of the child. And we need to consider respond to that.
Yeah.
Irrelevant of their diagnosis. Because the diagnosis is who they are. Whether the child is diagnosed or not, to be honest, it wouldn't make any difference to them.
True.
What diagnosis help is 2 things. One is relieve the guilt from the parent that they've caused this. Because the idea is that they will get the education that this condition or this difference or this disorder that your child has, it is not you doing. It's not when you were pregnant you were doing something odd, or it is not. It is something that the child came with, whether it is genetic, whether it is an environment, it's irrelevant. This is a diagnosis that you have, and it's not your fault. The second that diagnosis helps is in the West, it unlocks financials. So in the West, if a child is diagnosed, then the therapies and the bespoke education is paid by the government. Unfortunately, in Africa, it doesn't help.
I was going to say, is there any provision for parents with these children? Are they offered any support? Because we are more vulnerable. For example, families who have these kids, but they don't have the finance.
Yeah.
How they're not supported.
So in terms of, I can only talk about in the context of Kenya and what I know so far. There might be things that I still don't know.
Of course.
There are specialist provision that are supported by the government, but still you still have to pay a small amount. Those provisions mainly are for children with intellectual disability, severe end of intellectual disability, or visual impairment, or children with hearing impairment. So, as I said, diagnosis only helps with 2 things: guilt of a parent so that they know that they didn't cause the condition, and it unlocks financial incentives in the West because all the bespoke therapies and education is paid by the state. But in Africa, unfortunately, it doesn't bring any incentives apart from obviously understanding that, this is a condition, this is something that you're going to have to support your child lifelong. And kind of helps acceptance in a way rather than financial. There is no I know of financial incentives in education, apart from those schools that I talked about, that for those particular children. But education mainly is, and therapies are private. Some medical facilities offer therapies through insurance, which is good.
Yeah, very good.
But the only downside of that is that it's only medical intervention and it doesn't bridge to education. And that's why a lot of people are not been seeing huge impact in the education sector. That's why Center for Inclusive Practice, CIP, is now bridging between therapy and education so that we can support the child in the education environment.
Yeah. Speaking of CIP, how does the day-to-day life look like in classrooms?
So we start class from 7:30 to 8 o'clock. Children come in, and then we start in children kind of regulating their needs, their emotions, because obviously transition between home to the center, sometimes it kind of dysregulates the children. And then we kind of regulate that. And then after that, we have a bespoke learning program for individual children. Sometimes it happens in a group setting. Sometimes it happens in individual. We group children between ages. So early years, 3 to 4 years old is in a class. We have a maximum 10 students per class with 3 teachers.
That's nice.
So the kind of a teacher-student ratio is very small.
Yeah.
And then we kind of go through the day into kind of a segment of therapy, education, and kind of generalize therapy through the education. So our therapy is through education. Whatever they do in the therapy room are practiced in the classroom, in the playground, in the dinner hall. So it kind of helps children understand that therapy is not in isolation, and education is everywhere, not just in the classroom.
How are you integrating the parents once now the kids go home? And how are you bridging the gap between the CIP and the mainstream education?
Okay, so in terms of home and the center, is that we train the parents. So when the child comes in, the first 6 weeks, we prepare the children, we understand their strength, we understand their weakness, we understand the areas that we need to improve, and then we create an IEP, individual educational program, for that particular child. And then we bring the parents and then we discuss the needs of the child and how they can also support this program at home. But we also do every term, we do 1 to 2 trainings for parents based on the needs of our children that we have. And we constantly, when the parents are being dropped, the kids, or when we're picking up the kids, when we're dropping, because even in our buses, our teachers are on the bus.
Yeah.
So the children are never alone, and we're always there for the parents to make sure that they understand their child and that they know how to support their child in the home and in the community. When it comes to transitioning to mainstream, so the whole idea of this center is bridging the education system in this country, because I'm a believer of inclusive education.
Yeah.
I have studied all my life on how to include children within the society that they live in, because we do not have a segregated community for them.
Yeah.
So it is our duty as educators to ensure our children are included in every institution, be it employment, education, regardless. So what we do is when we understand our children, we kind of prepare them to understand the world that they live in. So we put them in situations where they can go into the community, they can go into mainstream education. And then what we are doing that has never been done before, we are training the mainstream education institutions to accept our children.
Yeah.
So we transitioned about 3 to 4 children in the last 2.5 years that we've been opened.
Nice.
And our children are now flourishing in those mainstream educations.
Let's go.
And we offer trainings to mainstream settings. for teachers, for leadership, to understand that inclusive doesn't have to be difficult and doesn't have to cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
So when we transition our children, we meet with them, we explain the needs of our children, and then we train their teachers, we train their support staff and the leaders so that our children can also transition to mainstream education successfully. And we have done that already.
Yeah. As we are concluding, I wanted you to share with us takeaways for a caregiver listening or watching, and teachers, which I know teachers are watching. What should they take and do today in this coming week in their classrooms or at home?
Okay, I'll start with the parents because I want to say to parents, you are the first educator of your child. You are the first expert of your child. No matter how other experts are experts in their own field, you're the expert of your child. Trust your instincts. Believe in yourself and advocate for your child's needs. When someone tells you, oh, this is how we should be done, is that okay for your child? Don't just take things blindly. So that's what I'm going to say to parents. Again, let me finish parents and then I'll come back to the educators.
Yes.
Don't compare your child with another child. Even if the other parents have a child with autism.
You can say it louder for the African parents.
Please do not compare your child with another child. Whether they are sibling, neighbor, someone in the school, because your child is unique and they are different to every child, regardless of their needs. Third, build routine. Children on the spectrum flourish when there's a routine. If you don't have a routine now, start with one. Start with the morning and develop daily routine and into the evening routine. You will thank me later. And also, it's really important that you learn how your child communicates. A lot of behaviors are communication. And a lot of negative behaviors, we see it as a bad thing. It's not. The child is just communicating with you. Understand their communication. Learn how they understand you and how they are trying to make you understand them. So that's another thing. I really want parents to work with professionals because obviously professionals also have their stake in your child's growth. Work with them. It's not a one-way system. Don't expect your child you've taken to a specialist provision, don't expect miracles. You really need to work with them. And you really need to change your home environment to meet the needs of your child. It's really, really important. Because a lot of parents, they will bring the child to you and they expect miracles. It doesn't work like that. So if a parents come to me and they don't work with us, we actually let that parent and that child go because it's not about coming up with miracles. No. We have to put the work in. Yes, unfortunately. And parents, this is something that I really want to take away from this episode. Look after your well-being. A lot of the time when we have a child with additional needs, we forget ourselves. Parents become burnout. They become fatigued to the point where they resent their own child because they have no more to give. So pour into your cup before you can pour it out to others, including your children. And finally, remember, progress is not a linear. There'll be days that is up, there'll be days that is down. Enjoy the process. Don't focus on the outcome. Just trust the process. And you will see the result. So that is for parents, for professionals, and for teachers in particular. Please be open-minded in your approach to supporting your children. And it's not about you. It is about the child. It has to, whatever you do, it has to be child-centered. And when things are not going your way, don't point the fingers at the child. It is not their fault. Look at 3 things. Look at the curriculum. Is the curriculum designed to meet the needs of that child? Look at the environment. Is that environment conducive to that child's needs? Not every child, that particular child.
In
Because
question.
every child is different and unique.
Yeah.
And thirdly, look at your teaching. Does actually your teaching response to their needs?
Yes. Yeah. I love
Before we point the finger
Finger,
at the child and the
child.
parent.
that. Yeah.
That is naturally like, I am doing everything right. We don't need to be defensive.
Yeah.
Us educators can sometimes get it wrong.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
And can I cut you short?
Yes.
We were in the background when I was asking you about why you created CIP.
Yeah.
You talked about dyslexia.
Yes.
And I'd like for you to talk about it because I remember when I started studying psychology,
Yeah.
that's when I realized I studied with someone who was dyslexic in my primary school.
Yeah.
And that child was struggling and had always performed badly. And all teachers, I mean like literally all teachers, would complain about this child.
Yeah.
They would call him names. They will,
Because they were not pointing themselves at their finger. They
Yeah.
were looking at the child as the problem.
and it made like the whole class feel like every time who has performed badly, we all knew that it was going to be this person.
Yeah.
Now, when I started studying about it, I was like, wait a minute.
Actually, we're an intelligent and creative bunch.
Because that guy was the best in football.
Yeah.
Like, when
Yeah.
it came, and then that's why the thing that the teachers would be like, all you know to do is play. All you want to do is go to art classes. All you want to do is do things. I was like,
You kind of started talking about a subject close to my heart. So for those of you who are listeners or watching us, I live with severe dyslexia, meaning that I struggle to read, I struggle to write, and I struggle with retaining information in the short term. Everything that I want to remember long term has to be going into my long term memory. So working memory is deficient. However, I have master's degree in education. And I am I'm a PhD candidate. So
That's
I've been
good.
accepted into doing my PhD, even though I postponed it, but I am PhD worthy.
yeah.
Why I say that? Because your difficulties in a particular area of your brain does not determine your outcome of education.
Yes.
As long as you get the right interventions and the right support from the educators that are supporting you.
Sure.
So my adopted country, I come from the UK. I grew up all my adult life in the UK. My adopted country gave me the opportunity to understand my needs. So some differences, whether it's autistic, autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyscalculia, dyspraxia, all these names of dys,
Yeah.
meaning deficiencies,
Yeah.
does not mean cognitively all.
Yes.
It just means you have difficulties in certain areas. So as educators, our job is to figure it out how your brain process and learn information. And when I talked about look at your teaching practice and how you're delivering your teaching, is your teaching responsive to that particular individual's brain and how they receive information? So for me, I'm a visual learner and I'm a kinesthetic learner. So anything I see or anything I do goes into my long-term memory. And I have an above average cognitive ability.
Wow.
So if someone measures me in typical linear education,
Yeah.
I will fail.
Yeah.
So when I was going to university and I was doing my first degree, I was assessed for my dyslexia. And I in my literacy, I was primary level, but I was entering university. But in my cognitive ability or my intellectual abilities, I was top 2% in the UK. To be precise, I was 139.
Wow.
That means I'm above category of intelligence. But if I was measured in literacy in classroom, I would have failed.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying when you're looking at your student as an educator, don't point the finger at the student, look at around before you could try and find what is it that you need to do in order to support this child's progress in their education. And it's really important that you don't isolate education and therapy. They need to work together. So if your child has communication barriers or is struggling with their activity of daily living, and you're working with the occupational therapist and speech and language therapist, make sure some of the interventions are also designed for the schools so that there's a bridge between the schools and therapy team.
Yes.
And that's the way that you can see there is no miracles, parents, educators. I'm going to tell you here, there is no miracles. We have to put the work in.
Yes.
And we need to support our children.
Thank you so much, Saudi. That brings us to the end of our episode. I love that so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I love that so much because you were able to give like a whole approach of what needs to be done. So education sector can do it alone. Therapy sector cannot do it alone.
No.
We need a community to work together, that is family, parents. We need the education, teachers, educators. We need the professionals, personnel, the therapists, the speech therapists, the occupational therapists. We all need to work together for the well-being of these people in our society that need to be included and to be seen for who they are, known for who our expectations are. And I particularly want to emphasize the points that you gave to caregivers. Explicitly identify and communicate the help that you need.
Yes.
If you need sleep, tell people, I need sleep.
Yeah.
Give me a moment. Come watch my children for a moment. We were challenged as a community. If you see a parent outside at a restaurant struggling, do not point fingers. Do not call them bad parents or incompetent parents. It could be a child who has different needs and they just having their moment. Show more grace, be more patient, and professionals, she asked us to be kind as therapists. Do not feel like it's easy for you to give these detailed things for a parent to do. Sometimes it's going to be hard. Help parents create their own approaches that are fitting this particular client of yours or patient and fits their family. So professionals will be challenged. Teachers, you've been challenged, and caregivers, you've been asked to identify and communicate your needs. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. What a summary. I love that. That captured everything that we talked about.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate you welcoming me into your podcast. And thank you so much for allowing me to be part of your community. Looking forward to hearing your listeners' response.
Yeah, and I can't wait for her episode that is coming out soon for her own podcast. She's having a podcast. And if you've been new here, I am Kenzuri Sandra, your host. This is In the Quiet Podcast, where silent cups are filled. We talk about mental health, we talk about psychology, and in the context of the African community. Thank you for watching this far. Ciao.
Bye.
Bye. Hey y'all, our deputy journal is finally out. So I have created a gratitude journal. After a long period of time thinking about it and wanting to have it out there, I've created something that I was looking for and couldn't find. Something that is well guided, well thought of, and very intentional. I've realized lots of us, we have open journals that have nothing in, and we're always worried about thinking what to write or what to say. And that's why I came out with a very layered journal that has prompts and asks you what to write down. It has morning reflections, evening reflections, that is a daily reflection. It has weekly reviews, it has monthly check-ins and quarterly check-ins. So if you are someone who wants to venture into their journey of journaling and building a lifestyle around gratitude, this is what I recommend you in the Quite Meaningful Gratitude Journal. Reach down in the description and order yours today on our Instagram at In the Quiet Place Hub.
Every person
Has a story. Some loud,
others are buried in silence.
and here we bring them to light.
Some conversations change how we think, others change how we live. This is a space for both. Welcome to In the Quiet podcast, where honesty isn't filtered, but silent cups are filled.